Started. Okay, welcome from the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter study group for July 2022. This is the 44th consecutive class. We here at the IIBA Tampa Bay have a mission to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the Tampa Bay IT community. As you know, not only Tampa Bay, but all of Northern Florida is our area, but we have people that join us from all over the world. So welcome. It doesn't matter where you live. If we can benefit you, we would love to have you join our chapter. We do mentoring, we do resume review, networking. We'll help you get ready for your test, whatever it takes. You have a variety of ways to join us here. We have the current, what you're in right now, the BABOK study group every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 Eastern. We have Meetup and Zoom online. We have our past meetings recorded. You can go and look at many of our last meetings. We had a few technical difficulties some weeks, but we did pretty good at getting most of them. The IIBA website is right here, our Tampa Bay group. Then we have Meetup, Facebook, and then 2 LinkedIn groups. We have these are some of the recordings that we've done in the past, going through the BABOK, about 2 meetings per chapter, going through the practice test questions. So for chapter 1, 2, etc. We also did one on class 8, how to apply for the test. And then we went through the techniques, and currently we are working our way through the chapter 9, which is the underlying competencies. We'll finish that up tonight. We are a volunteer supported organization. Our board is made up of our president, who is online with us now, Cliff Gray. Lori is our vice president of finance. Caitlin and Priscilla are board members at large. My name is Thea Raisins. I'm the vice president of career and professional development for the chapter. If you would like to reach me, you can reach me through LinkedIn. That way I can not lose you in my email. Tiffany Gardner occasionally will stop in and help us teach a class. We do need more board members. So if you're interested in becoming a board member, please reach out to me. We will not ask you to do something every single week or give, 5 hours a day or anything like that. What we will ask you is, we have a list of things that need to be done. Are any of these things that you can either do or have time to do, and we'll get it figured out. Helping us helps other people. I have a firm belief that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that's actually an economics term, but I believe it whenever you help people, you help them and everybody around them. So let's help each other. Join us by being a board member, and let's make this a better world for everybody. Bob Churchill, you can see him here. He is our resident SME. He's got his CBAP certification under his belt. He also has a variety of other certifications that he has earned by right. He has a website. You can see it here, rpchurchill.com. He's got a really good variety of interesting things that you can go and peruse, and you can contact him at this website. So let's go ahead and get started. And if our special guest is able to join us, we will pop over to that. But first thing I want to do is go through the rest of chapter 9. Before we begin tools and technology, I want to go back just a little bit. We talked about written word and how important it was to organize your writing for your audience. And there's something that occurred to me that I want to mention. Using caps, all caps for a word, has come to mean that you're yelling or that it's shouting or screaming. That's not how it used to be, but that's how it is now. I had an incident happen where we used all caps just to be able to easily see this word at the top of our JIRA tickets. And unfortunately, some of the people that chose to use this method included an individual's name in it. So it looked as though we were singling him out, yelling his name, and that was not acceptable to the organization. And I just want to, say, just be considerate of how people are going to take the way that you write and try to not cause yourself or anybody else any problems as you're doing that. Okay, tools and technology. Business analysts use a variety of software applications to support communication and collaboration. So we've got, let's see, I've got it broken down on the next next pages. Office productivity tools and technology to document and track important information and information and artifacts. So this would be things like, whenever I wrote this, we had a couple of different things. So I'm going to talk about what we currently have. Of course, we have word processing and presentation programs. So Microsoft Word and maybe OneNote, presentation software like PowerPoint, spreadsheets like Excel, communication tools, email and instant messaging programs. Teams was not in existence whenever this was written. I'm sure if you are in a corporate environment, Teams may be one of the things that you use, and then collaboration and knowledge management tools like Confluence. Are there any other tools that y'all use on a regular basis that would be something that you would suggest that a new business analyst should be aware of? Okay, one thing I like about OneNote is with OneNote, you can do a search and it will search through all the different elements within OneNote to find that word or that phrase or that number, which is beneficial because whenever you're doing a search in some of the other applications, it will only search within that directory, or it may not search within the document. It may only search the titles. So OneNote is cool. Also with OneNote, you can create a group OneNote so that multiple people can access that directory of OneNote and contribute and collaborate with their information. I've seen people open up a single OneNote, open it up to the entire group, and everybody takes notes together on the discussion or on the presentation. So people contribute what they think is important, or they even, correct misspellings from other people, but you get a lot more robust information in it. Yes, Bob.
I wanted to say that I took a number of surveys when I've given in-person talks over the past few years. And one of the questions I asked was, what's the most common software you use? And the results of that are on my blog, probably in a few places, but I wrote about it in an article called Unified Theory of Business Analysis, Part 3. I'll find it and post a link to it.
Okay, that would be appreciated. Other tools that we would use that would be software, I'm sure that y'all are going to come up with some later. It's like, oh yeah, I should have said that. So let me know later. But then let's talk about hardware. There's always, your laptop, your printer, a digital projector if you do things in person, photocopies, scanners. I know many offices that have set it up where they don't even use paper anymore. They scan things, if they have paper. Otherwise, everything just stays online or, gets moved back and forth electronically. One of the weird benefits of not having paper is you don't have a lot of office supplies. You don't need staplers. You don't need highlighters. Very few people even have pens at their desk. We just have our monitors, our keys, our plants. And if you're in an advertising world, you've got your vodka or gin on your desk too. So that just makes it more interesting. Okay, effectiveness measures for office productivity tools and technology include increased efficiencies in streamlining the process by exploring features and functions of tools, awareness of available tools or operations and abilities, the ability to determine the tool that will best meet the stakeholder needs, and the ability to clearly communicate the major features of an available tool. One of the things that I'm sure that y'all share with me is a fascination for using Excel. and maybe doing something in Excel and then moving it over to Word to do something different and then moving back over to Excel to do something different, because there are things you can do in one that the other one can't do, but to use on both is like a double threat. Using things like a VLOOKUP or a pivot table in Excel can speed up an analysis of a piece of information considerably. Filters, searches, if then statements, all kinds of things like that. Just turn it into a game or toys of getting the information out of a big group of data that you didn't have previously. Okay, anything else about tools? And then we'll move into business analysis tools and technology.
Video is also huge. To learn how to use that, at least these simple diagramming tools with different kinds of connectors and arrows and labels, it's really not scary, and it gives you a lot of power. There are other tools out there. PowerPoint will do in a pinch, and it's cheaper and more available. So get used to one or both of those, and any other diagramming stuff makes sense.
I agree. I use Visio a great deal. What I discovered is trying to get a Visio to fit on a PowerPoint slide sometimes is a challenge, especially the way I create Visios. They're just too wide or whatever. So I had to create a swim lane diagram in PowerPoint, and I used a table to create the swim lanes, and it worked wonderfully. I didn't have to worry about the background moving around as I moved boxes or added arrows.
And my website is filled with Visio diagrams and PowerPoint.
Yes, it is. Okay, speaking of diagrams, we model, document, and manage output of business analysis activities and deliverables to stakeholders. So we're talking about modeling, diagramming, documenting, analyzing, and mapping requirements, identifying relationships between requirements, tracking and storing requirements, and communicating with stakeholders. So modeling tools such as Visio, as Bob said, we can use PowerPoint. There are a variety of other modeling tools that don't have as popular names, but are very often quite as effective. There are sometimes that you can use something like a SharePoint or a Confluence to be able to get information out there. And then something that's been created since this was written is things like Power BI or Tableau or something like that, that helps you do an analysis on the data that's more in-depth or maybe more robust in some ways than Excel would be. Okay. Requirement management technologies can provide functionalities that assist us with a number of requirements management related tasks, including requirements workflow like baselining, approvals, sign off, change control, just a workflow management system, impact analysis of requirements change. If you have a change management program that you have a requirements management system that's very effective. There's a program called Workday that can be used for human resources, for finance, for benefits. And I think they also have an inventory system. They have a built-in workflow management system so that if Bob says, I need to have this thing done, it automatically is routed to the next person who says, I need you to approve this because it's, it's under $25,000. That person has it in their queue. They are able to see it. It's tracked how long it's there. If it's there too long, an alert is sent up to the next person, things like that. In many ways, it's very effective if it's put together properly. If it's not put together properly, it can be a mess. Let's see, traceability, including backwards traceability, forwards traceability, relationships between requirements, impact analysis of requirements change. What are some software tools that y'all have used other than Excel for traceability? have you used something like Jira to do that?
I haven't done it, but I've written about how to do it. And
Using Jira right now. And of course, DevOps is our preferred.
Who makes DevOps?
That's Microsoft.
Well,
Come on.
It's also a general term of art for the industry.
yeah, I know, but I was like,
DevOps a lot of ways.
okay,
Oh, well, yeah, I guess, yes. For Microsoft people, DevOps is an application.
yeah, okay. Okay, and then
Hey
using,
Tia, I would say a couple of words about Jira. Using it extensively, and it's actually a very powerful tool. If you combine it with Confluence, you can build. First of all, you're planning your sprints. You can even create a project plans. You can do Gantt charts there. Then you can create dashboards. You have epics, initiatives, all that kind of a hierarchy. If you're using Scaled Agile, if you're using Scrum, you're using Scale Agile, and you combine all that, and it's there. It's well, you can find that story. It's good for tracking and like planning your work and having all of that. What I found sometimes hard is that if you want to find some information in more general way, obviously you have to create the general documents, and that's where Confluence can be of the use. So once you develop your solution, you have that hundreds of user stories and change requests. So after that, you will need to consolidate that and put that in some better visible way in the Confluence. So you're kind of documenting after the fact. I mean, that's the experience with the Agile. When you're doing something experimental or adjusting as you go.
are you able to use links from Confluence into Jira so that you don't have to actually import the document? You can keep them live?
Yeah, you can use links. You can actually, in the board, I can put the links to, let's say I have some board to my project. Well, first of all, you can have a big project, and then you can have several boards. You have several teams linked to the project. Let's say we have some big project called Cedar, for example, and then we have different modules which are part of the same system, and they link to that board. And then you can link stories, you can make them dependent, you can flag them, all that kinds. And then once you in the story, you can do test cases. Jira you can create called Zephyr, I think, test cases, which has also framework where you can put test cases and evidences and include images, videos, whatever you want. So you kind of have all the tracking from the requirements points of view until you launch it to production. Then you can create releases right there, and then put the publish release notes. So we pretty much can do all of the things in Jira. I would recommend any new business analyst learn that tool, as world is moving to agile, right? So yeah, that's valuable.
Let's go off on a little tangent here. I had a conversation with a recruiter about the world moving to Agile and what they are finding in working with some of the more conservative companies, or the companies that have deep and slow regulations, that they can't move to Agile very easily. And in some ways, they are having to go back to waterfall after trying to move to Agile for some of their things, simply because they can't move fast. They've got to go along with the requirements, the regulations, and the culture that they've created with their very conservative environments, such as banking, utilities, insurance, very conservative environments for those. So you may find that you're not seeing Agile embrace quite so quickly in those. They want to. Some of the people want to. Yes, Bob?
Agile has also been oversold. It's like, we had to be agile. And it's like, no, all agile is making sure people talk to each other and you react flexibly and you don't all go away and do whatever for a year and come back together and try to make it work.
Right.
So that's really all it is. And
Gotcha.
a lot of the agile and the certification for it, including the 3 that I have, or not quite an outright scam, but they're close.
Well, there are some scamish areas that you could point at in the adoption of Agile. Specifically, there's not a governing body that tells you what should be included in, for instance, Scrum Master certification, or at least there wasn't not long ago. There might be by now, or a product owner certification. But it doesn't mean that what they teach isn't valuable. It's just
Right.
you take it from one company, it's going to be $800 for 5 weeks, and if you take it from another company, it's going to be $50 for a weekend.
Or $1,600 for 2 days. I got this for my product owner thing. And if I sat in a room for 3 hours and talked about stuff that was 3 days, and talked about stuff that was mostly obvious, as an experienced practitioner, and half the stuff in here is the same for all the agile certs, and half the stuff in here is general practice and software stuff that's just kind of out current and isn't agile at all. It's just marketing fluff.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay, so let's talk about issue tracking tools. Sometimes people are going to call these more of work tracking tools, that they're going to be the tracking of risk, conflicts, and issues or defects. I'm going to say that Jira, ServiceNow, TFS or Team Foundation Server, and there's probably 2 or 3 others that
Rally.
What else?
Those are the big ones
Okay.
I've heard of.
ADO is another one. So you can use it for that too.
Okay, tell me ADO is Microsoft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Okay, so here's the deal. TFS is something that I used a long time ago. I don't know that it's been updated at all. It may not even exist any longer. ServiceNow has a version of Jira that it's like they tried to take the functionality of Jira and shove it into one of the pieces of ServiceNow, and it doesn't have all the functionality that you would want if you're trying to do Agile, but it does have some of the functionality. I would say that my favorite is Jira. Does anyone have a favorite that's not Jira?
You could actually do it with Violet workflow in low code business type frameworks like Appian.
That's
So
interesting.
very easily,
Okay,
if you
cool.
know what you're doing.
That would require that I would have to learn what you were talking about. So we'll get there later. Okay, let's talk about prototyping and simulation tools. To create a prototype, I would say that a prototype is literally.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Microsoft Visio. When I used Microsoft Visio when I was at IIBA.
Okay, very good.
I just have to add that to the conversation.
For prototyping, use Visio. Is that what you're saying, Ben-Hur?
Not prototyping, for like requirements, workflow diagrams, creating
Okay.
diagrams, requirements. I use Microsoft Visio for that,
Okay,
especially
very good.
database.
I understand.
And it's very effective. And then I track the requirements. I design tables. It's quite challenging the first time you do it, but I learned a lot. That's why I still remember, because I learned a lot.
Good, good.
Or else I would have forgotten it.
All right. So let's talk about prototyping for a minute. So prototyping can be anything as basically as what they call back of the napkin prototyping. Whenever you write it down and the two decision makers are looking at it, and you can say, yes, that's what we want, and let's test it and move forward. And you do it in small increments so you can fail fast. If it's wrong, you know it fast, you don't spend a lot of time on it. I have gone so far as to create a software application in PowerPoint, and it's not really a software application, but it functions exactly the way the software application would. You click on this button and it opens up another screen, and you enter into here and you click enter and it does this thing. And what I did is I did it so well that the clients were like, oh, it's built. And we're like, no, it's not built. It just looks like it's built. I basically shot myself in the foot because they thought it was built. Also, another thing that you have to be careful of whenever you're making prototypes is you have to be sure that it's technologically capable. The application you're going to be using is technologically capable of doing what you're proposing, because as a BA, we don't always know what the limitations are. And that is part of our job. But, as you get into new applications and they come up with new patches and new releases and new code, you don't know all the time what the limitations are. So you have to be sure that they can do a drop-down menu if that's what the client is asking for, and you're going to put that in your prototype. And they can, do the left side menu that automatically hides, and they can do, whatever. So you don't want to overpromise, and you also don't want to make it so good that the customer is unhappy with the actual final product because they saw your prototype and your prototype was so good, it got their hopes up, and then they weren't able to actually meet that, which is, it's sad, but you don't want to do that. It's like cheating. You're telling a lie. You don't want to do that.
You
Okay.
can run into the same problem with wireframing too. Some of the wireframing tools give you that same simulation. You click on a button, it goes through a screen, it shows data,
Right.
and you can do it really quick, and people get the idea. It's like, oh, damn, you just built that. That's awesome. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah. And they want it to roll out the next day, and you're like, my developers haven't even seen this. Anyway. One thing is, whenever you're creating prototypes and you're talking to your developers to be sure that this is feasible and you can meet these requests, and you're kind of putting this picture together, go ahead and bring in your QA people at that time to say, how are you going to prove, how do you test this to say that it's real, that you met the need? They can have some ideas at that point where they can say, okay, do they want it a certain color blue? Like, give me our what is it, red, green, blue code on it, or does it just have to be blue? They were going to ask questions that you're not going to think of just because they have to think of it a little bit differently. So effectiveness measures include the ability to apply understanding of one tool to other similar tools. So say if you understand what Jira does, you could probably understand what ServiceNow does. There's going to be similar functions. It's not going to work exactly the same way, but it'll be similar. Being able to identify major tools currently available and describe their strengths, weaknesses, and how they may be used in a given situation. I feel like Superwoman whenever I walk into a new job and I look at what they're using, and I'll say, have you considered using this other thing that I know would save them so much time and effort and simplify and streamline? And I'm able to bring them something that is like a gift. But you also have to know, what's going on with it. Understanding of and the ability to use major features of the tool. Whenever you learn of a tool on your own, very often you learn a very small niche of what that tool can do based on what your needs are at that time. You don't learn the full expanse of the tool. So even if you learn a tool on your own, give yourself the opportunity to take a basic course on LinkedIn Learning or something else, because you're going to find aspects of it that you were oblivious to because you didn't know it did it. You didn't have the need at the time, and it's going to expand your understanding. Ability to select a tool or tools that support the organizational process, ability to use the tool and complete requirements related activities more rapidly than otherwise possible. For instance, with Power BI, with Excel, using a pivot table or a VLOOKUP. The ability to track changes to the requirements and their impact on the solution, implementation, stakeholder, and value. JIRA is fantastic for this because every time you make a change, it identifies what change was made, who made the change, when it was made. And so you've got fingerprints for every single thing. Somebody can't go in there and just change requirements on you. You know exactly who it was. Okay, any questions on that section? Okay, next section, communication tools and technologies to perform business analysis activities, manage teams, and collaborate with stakeholders. So off the top of your head, what do you think of? What tools are you thinking of?
Zoom.
But
Zoom and Teams.
Email,
Yep.
face-to-face meetings, phone
Oh.
calls.
Absolutely. And then there's
those exist.
there's things like Confluence and stuff like that too. So
Presentations for sure. That's number one. I think put that on there. Especially business analysts do a lot of presentations.
mhm.
Discord, Slack.
Uh-huh. Cliff, would Get be one of those? Or is that just for developers? Not really
You
business.
talking about like GitHub?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more for code checking in and out and versioning, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. So understanding the options with these tools. So let me give you an example. What if you knew that Teams you could do meetings on, but you didn't realize that you could share files on? You didn't know you could create groups that you could have private chats on. So I create a group that has just the other business analysts in my team. So I could send out a message to just them, or I could create a group that is specific to a problem that we're trying to solve. And so it pops up on their little icon at the bottom that says that they got a message. So there are aspects of these that you may know one part of it really well, but you don't know the others. And my very favorite way to learn how other people use tools is to watch them work. And if they're sharing their screen and they're working and not just doing a presentation, I love it because I will like take notes of they did this cool thing and they did this thing and I don't know how they did it. So I'm going to call them later and say, how did you do that cool thing? And I geek out a little bit, but it's so cool because not only do they feel like they have something to contribute, I get to learn something and then I get to teach other people. Let's see, voice communications, instant messaging, online chat, email, blogging, and microblogging. Does anybody know what microblogging is?
Blogging, but smaller.
So instead of a book, it's a paragraph. Would that work?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then there's video conferencing, electronic whiteboards, wikis, electronic calendars, online brainstorming tools. There's a new one called, it starts with an M. It's not Manila. Basically, it looks like a bunch of Post-it notes on a screen that you can change their color and move them around and type on them, and the whole team can be working on them at the same time.
Trello. There are a
Yeah,
bunch
that's it.
of drawing ones and flow charting ones. So
Very good. Okay, effectiveness measures for communication tools and technologies. Selection of appropriate and effective tools for the audience and purpose. Effectively choosing when to use communication technology and when not to. The ability to identify tools to meet communication needs and the understanding of and ability to use the features of the tool. One thing I want to draw your attention to is whenever you're like, I want to use this new thing, but I haven't checked to be sure everyone in my my team that would need access at the same time has access? What if only the employees have access, but the contractors don't? Or what if there are licensing requirements per user that you're not aware of, and you just open it up to 20 users and you didn't get licenses for 20 users? So you have to check for availability, accessibility, and licensing for these communication tools. Any questions or comments about the tools that we use as business analysts? Okay, what I'd like to do next is talk about the other people in our lives. As business analysts, we know we talk to business analysts. We know we talk to the SMEs. If you're in software development, you talk to developers, you talk to development leads, you talk to your QA people. You have a kind of an ecosystem of people you talk to. But what I'd like to do is propose that for the next couple of weeks, I bring in a couple of people that can talk about those other people in our lives. For instance, what makes an effective UX, UI person? And how is that managed in an organization? And how can business analysts best work with them? When do they need to be included in meetings? What do they need from us? What is their role in the project? And, you know, in every organization, they're going to have a different level of authority, responsibility, decision-making. But in some companies, such as advertising, they may have a very high level, or website development, they may have a very high level of responsibility. But whenever you're talking about something like retail stores or print publications, they may have a much lower level of decision making. They're just supposed to make it pretty. They also have some guidelines that they have to follow that we need to be aware of. For instance, if they want to do an omni-channel, which means that the customers would have the same basic experience regardless of if they come into the retail store or online or access it by mobile or whatever, that's omni-channel. They may have templates that they want to use so that everyone has the same experience. For, you know, whenever we're going to put out an ad, the email is going to have the same heading. The verbiage is going to be consistent across the different aspects. So they have a wide range of, if they have a whole lot of decision-making power or a little bit, depending on the organization and the industry. Another person I'd like to bring in is a product owner that is very similar to a business analyst, but they have some more decision-making responsibilities, kind of some of the same that a project manager might have in an organization, but it's about the project that you're working on. Many BAs have transferred over into the product ownership role. Then there's program management. Program management is a higher level of, I would say it's a sub-director, and they work across multiple organizations to solve problems that many organizations have. I'm sorry, not many organizations. For instance, 5 groups or 5 departments might be having similar problems, and they would look at that one of those problems and tackle it across the different verticals. And it would depend on, of course, the industry, the company, as to how much responsibility and authority that they have. But in some ways, they are business analysts from a different perspective, because they're trying to solve things like employee engagement issues, or communication, or workflow, or process management. That's not specific to a small project. Then there is the individual that's responsible for identifying which projects are going to be pursued by the organization, getting a high-level business case written, doing an evaluation of the impact, the potential impact of doing it or not doing it, and then prioritizing it, and then putting it on a timeline and identifying who the departments or players are going to be in each of those, so that they can basically schedule their work, their labor for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on the type of project. So I've got a couple of different people I'd like to bring in. Bob has a couple of things that he would like to talk about. That is, one is software development, and what was the other one, Bob?
Simulation.
Simulations. So as business analysts, we need to know how to work with all these people. Oh, of course, there's QA. I should have told you about QA. The QA, again, is going to be different levels of authority and responsibility depending on your organization and your industry. But we need to know how to work with them. We need to know how best to, when to bring them in, when to what to provide to them, what decisions they should be responsible for, when to go to them and say, hey, this is being brought up and I think I need to bring you into the meeting, or to, go to them and say, you said you didn't want this, but we're talking about this. So how do we solve this problem? You become a facilitator, mediator in some of these, but it's all managing the relationships. So if y'all have anybody that you would like to recommend for any of those talks or anything else in relation to this, let me know. I've got a couple of people that I've put out feelers for. One is a knowledge management person, but I can't seem to get in her schedule yet. I found a project management person who is an international speaker, but he's booked out for 2 months. Yes, Bob.
I have a friend who has a master's in UX stuff, and and from Carnegie Mellon, no less.
That's impressive.
Good friend of mine. I can ping her and see if she'll talk.
Ask if she'll talk and ask her if she is available for one of the next 3 Tuesdays. The other person I asked about that same thing may be available, but they haven't responded yet. So I'm asking everybody to give us 3 Tuesdays of options. And if you can make one of them, great, we'll book you in and do that. After we go through a couple of these and we learn about some of these roles and maybe some of these other professions that are adjacent to ours, we're going to start on the BABOK again on chapter 1, the test questions. So those people who are interested in either learning the BABOK more deeply or preparing for the test, we're going to go through the test questions as a group and see if we can do better than we did last time. And all I'm going to ask you to do is read the chapter before we go through the test questions so that you're familiar with it and you're not just guessing. If you read the book a couple of times, if you read the chapter a couple of times, the test questions are going to sound familiar. We had a young lady that was a member of our first study group that she would say, that's what the book says. I mean, she knew it so well. She was able to say, well, that's the right answer. That's what the book says. And it was so refreshing because some of the other folks in the study group had not read the chapter at all, but she had actually read it. So that was a delight to encounter.
Is that Yulia?
That was Yulia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no. And it's funny you talk about QA because I've been with several organizations that did layoffs and it was just amazing. That's the first group. It seems to always disappear. QA is like a dead science anymore in a lot of places. And then they wonder why they have problems. But
let me say that QA is often the last person to be considered in a project. But they are truly the gatekeepers of quality. It is their job to stand at the gate and say, this is not good enough to go out. And they should be respected for that. Pardon me. Okay, so I mentioned several professions that we might want to have come talk to us. Again, if you have someone that you think would be beneficial for us to talk to, please contact me through LinkedIn and contact them and see if they would be interested. All we want is for them to tell us what it is they do, how best can business analysts work with them as far as the communication, the responsibilities. There is some division of labor in some of these. For instance, with project managers, in some projects, your business analyst is going to be your Batman. In some projects, he's going to be the guy beside you in the trenches. In some projects, they're going to want you to be the Robin. In some projects, they're going to want you to be the Alfred. But you have to have those conversations and come to that understanding ahead of time so that you can function as a unit. because in some ways you're two halves of the same coin. Okay, I have run out of things to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. If we don't have anything else, any other professions that you want me to go after? Does anybody else have any questions or anything that they want to get answers to?
Well, I will come on. This is Keith, and apologize to everybody. I had a misunderstanding about the time. I thought this started at 8 p.m. my time, not 7. So I am very sorry. I apologize to you, Thea, and to everybody else.
That's okay, Keith. We will schedule you for one of the next Tuesdays. You want to go introduce yourself? I'll show your profile here.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So my name is Keith Nolan. I have been in IT since about 1994, and I like to tell people that I've had every role in IT except for running cable. Started as a developer and spent about 10 years working strictly as a business analyst here in the Central Florida area. I've worked for government, I've worked in retail, I've worked in logistics, hospitality, transportation, all sorts of different industries. I was one of the first members of the IIBA chapter of Central Florida, and I got my CBAP in 2006, which I recently renewed for the second time. About 5 or 6 years ago, I made the gradual transition from business analyst to business architect, and I currently work for well, you can see it on the screen. I work for Disney, which they don't always want us to say when we're presenting, but it's obviously on the screen, so that's fine. My title is lead process architect. I also do a great deal of business architecture work, as well as process improvement. And I was really looking forward to giving this talk, and now I'm looking forward to giving it in the future.
I apologize. I kept talking because it's like, okay, I have things to say, but it was not going to be the caliber of what you were going to give us.
No, please don't apologize. That's my fault.
It's okay. It's okay. We all make mistakes. We just punt and keep going forward. So one of the things I'm really excited for you to tell us, Keith, whenever you do give your talk, is how do you decide which projects you're going to move forward with? And then once you identify the projects that have value, how do you determine who's going to be participating in the projects and then scheduling the manpower over the next period of time?
So let me answer that in a couple of ways. One, that is typically not my decision. And I'll draw a little bit of a contrast between being a business analyst and business architect. A business analyst is typically about delivery of one change, one technical product. Ideally, they're brought in basically once the project has been approved and is starting to be designed, works closely with a project manager, and their role is to, using requirements and their other skills, to see that the solution delivered meets the proposed business value.
Mm-hmm.
A business architect, now that role is titled and used in a ton of different ways, but in my opinion, it's best used at a strategic level of helping the organizational leaders at the C-suite or next level down decide what changes to make from a business standpoint, and then how to implement them from a program or project standpoint. So business architecture answers questions like, we have a new regulatory compliance that we have to meet within 18 months that has to do with how we process all of our cash. What systems are affected, what roles are affected, what processes are affected. And that's just one lens that a good business architecture can go through. Another one is looking at the lens of value chains, because each business is made up of one or more of a set of value chains. And if a business needs to change or wants to change its value chain or improve its value chain, business architecture can really help address and design programs and projects with not just tribal knowledge, but analytical proof of what systems, what processes, what locations, and so forth need to be changed and what those changes might mean. So when it comes to deciding what projects to do, business architecture or business architect is your major influence into those. deciding how they're staffed, I mean, unless you're, you know, a team leader or some kind of, or a manager in some way, you're typically not going to be doing those things.
Okay. Can you explain more about what a value chain is?
Yeah, so a value chain is, all businesses have value chains, whether they realize it or not. And a lot of small businesses really don't think about it that way. But if you think about, let's say, a convenience store, their value chain is very simple. They bring in product, they stock the product, and they sell the product, and then their customer walks away with the product. That is their value chain. That is the value that they provide to their customer. Whereas if you talk about, there's some businesses that are more complicated. Like, let's take something that can be very complicated, say chip manufacturing. Okay, they have a value chain that ends in producing a chip that is then sold to customers, but the inputs and controls and facilities that make that value chain happen are much, much, much more complicated. But that is one value chain of, say, a chip manufacturer. They're also going to have another value chain of creating custom chips for custom applications that might go into, for example, a cell phone or an internet-enabled device, as opposed to a generic chip like, you know, Intel produces as a processor. That value chain will be different because it's going to involve a much tighter customer relationship. And the ROI in it will probably be different because it's going to be a specialized chip. So it's going to be higher cost and a less diverse customer base. It will share some inputs with the general chip value chain, but not everything about it will be the same. So when we talk about value chains, it's the core things that a business does to provide value to customers.
Very interesting. Yes, Bob.
Can you compare and contrast the idea or the function of solutions architecture versus process in business architecture?
Yeah, I can. Really good questions. That was solutions, process, and business architecture. Okay, so process architecture is a major part of business architecture. Process architecture is about how do we get things done? Who does what? And if you think about a swim lane diagram, it's about who does what, at what time, using what systems and tools. And then those processes, you know, big processes can have sub-processes. The processes may have other processes upstream and other processes downstream. That is a process architecture. A solution architecture is really, what are all the pieces we need to deliver this new solution, which can be small or which can be big. Let's say we've been doing our payroll manually and we want to automate our payroll system. And we've decided, for whatever reason, to build it from the ground up. That solution is going to have hardware, software, network interconnectivity. It's going to have users. It's going to have information coming into it, and it's going to have payroll product going out of it. That's a solution architecture. And what was the third one? Was it business architecture? Right. Okay. So business architecture takes a proposed or includes a proposed or delivered solution. The proposed solution is future state. A delivered solution is current state. It integrates that with your process architecture and with all of the other things that are in your business, the locations, roles, business rules, critically important and very often overlooked. Business rules, things like regulatory mandates. And when I talk about roles, I'm talking about teams, business actors, how those interrelate. And you can, one way I like to think of business architecture is kind of as a multidimensional cube, because the idea of perspectives or viewpoints is absolutely critical. A process viewpoint of your business architecture is going to show you how processes interrelate, and that will have in it that says X system supports X process, and Y role or team is involved in so-and-so process. Now, if you flip that, you may have a role or team perspective that says, here's 5 teams, here's the 7 processes that they support, and here's the 3 systems that they use. What that allows you to do then is say, when I want to change, let's say you have to change a system, what users are affected by it? What processes are affected by it? Where physically are those systems located? So what business architecture allows you to do is make holistic, informed analysis and decisions about creating change in your business. Did I answer your question, Bob? Okay. Good.
Very good. Keith, I'm really looking forward to your talk because I have a feeling there's things I have to learn from you. So this is exciting.
Well, you've heard about 30% of it already because you guys are asking terrific questions.
Well, Bob is one of our smart people. And incidentally, y'all don't live very far apart from each other. So,
Oh, okay.
so that could be interesting.
I just hit you on LinkedIn, so
Okay.
love to talk to you at some point.
Okay, that'd be great. Hit me up.
All right. Let me spend a few minutes just identifying who's here in the meeting and doing some introductions, because part of us meeting is the networking aspect. Let's see, I see we have quite a number of guests. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if anybody would like to step up and give us 3 or 4 sentences of who you are, what you've done, what you're doing now, and if you're looking for anything, go ahead and speak up.
Me.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Ben Hur. I am in information technology. Those who don't know me, I've been attending recently, consistently past a few months now, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot. My knowledge has increased dramatically, and I love being around like-minded people. You know, you are who you associate. So I like being around, smarter, better, wiser than me, because I want to push me, help me in my career path. So, and I plan on pursuing a career path in business analysis. And at the moment, I'm getting back to work in technology. I've been in the IT field past few years. I graduated in December with a bachelor's degree in IT and a minor in business. So the plan is eventually start a career and become a business analyst, like start up a junior role and work my way up. So this is where I'm at in my career at the moment. Thank you.
Nino is from the Philippines. We'd love to hear from him.
Hi everyone, good evening to you. Good morning here in the Philippines. Pleasure to be here. My current role is program manager of BACOE, or Center of Excellence in our company. And I've been in the IT for 14 years, 8 years of which in the BA field. And I've worked for banking sector, insurance, engineering firms. So yeah, I'm pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to meet you and hear from you in the next couple of weeks. And I've been listening also to the recordings, past recordings that Tejas mentioned earlier. Yep.
Good. That's very
Hi, I'm June Wyatt. I am new to this environment, IT. I've been in banking, commercial banking all my life. I've now have 1 year in the business analysis role. I thought this would have been the best forum for me to join so that I can further understand the role that I am in. I'm looking forward to more meetings with you all, hopefully that you all would be able to assist me in achieving my goal to become a CBAP, to become CBAP certified.
very good. With 1 year under your belt, you might want to look at the CCBE certification. It doesn't
Okay.
require 5 years of experience.
Okay.
And the test is quite a bit easier.
Okay. CCPE.
CCBE, yes.
Okay. Great. I'll look that up.
I think.
I'm sorry, CCBA.
Yep.
Okay.
Look it up.
Okay, I will.
Letters float around for me. I'm I have to search and chase them down.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we've got time for one more person to introduce themselves and tell us if you're looking for anything specific. Okay, well, if you do find that you need something specific, or if you need resume review, if you need networking, if you need, if you have a problem on the job and you just need to know a technique to help solve it, feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn. That's what I'm here for. I don't care where you live. I don't care if you're a member of our chapter or not. I'm here to help you. I love it if you would become a member of our chapter, because the bigger we are, the more people we can attract, because we become, a little bit more known, and that way we can help even more people. But again, my name is Thea Tanner Raisins, or Thea Raisins on LinkedIn. You're welcome to reach out to me, and we will spend next week. Keith, are you good for next Tuesday?
Unfortunately, I'm not. My calendar gets challenging. So let me see. Next Tuesday, I am booked.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm booked the 26th. I am free the 2nd of August.
Okay, so the 2nd of August, we'll hear from Keith and get more of the exciting information that he has to share with us. Between now and then, I'll work on getting a UX, a PM, a couple of other people in here, so that we can learn how to best work with them and provide value to our organization, and to make the working relationships the very best we can make them. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your involvement and for contributing and participating. It makes us all better.
I'm sorry to interrupt before you leave. Could you give me your full spelling of your name?
I tell you what, let me just show it to you here. Let's see, IIBA. I'm getting there, I promise. Okay, here it is.
Okay.
So on LinkedIn, I'm known as Thea Raisins. Or at least that's the way I was last time I checked. Sometimes
Okay.
my
All
maiden
right.
name is Tanner, so sometimes it's Thea Tanner Raisins, but it's Raisins is spelled oddly. If you don't know that, you're going to misspell it. But you can usually find me out. There's not a whole lot of Theas on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And
Okay,
June, if you
I'm
look
happy
in the
to help
messaging,
anybody.
I'm
Say it
sorry.
again, Cliff?
yeah, June, if you look in the messaging, there's all our links to the LinkedIn group, Facebook, Meetup, everything, if you aren't in those channels yet.
Okay, thanks so much, Cliff.
So he's got it all here in chat. Cliff
Okay.
is our marketing extraordinaire. Even though he's our current president, he is the marketing communications guy that we love.
Okay.
Okay, guys, see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday will be our 45th consecutive study group.
Wow.
So invite people to join us if you wish. We are going to try to continue to make this so much better for everyone. Okay, I will see you next time.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you
Bye,
later.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone. Bye-bye.